Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. It is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. It is 9:19 a.m. The session is set to go until 12:15. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110 for public virtual attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell and Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. We'll start our agenda with the homeless strategies update. And Keely?
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services with a brief update for you today. I'm going to start with the right-of-way initiative and where we are at in terms of camps being cleared and folks being relocated to housing. At this time, Slater Kenny Camp, alongside right as you approach the Slater Kenny exit or entrance or on-ramp, has been cleared. The site has been, I think, completely cleaned and hardened, as Department of Transportation, that's a term of art that they use, which basically means they've put big rocks in and cleared the brush and put big rocks to make it uninhabitable in the future. So that camp is completely cleared. The Wheeler camp, all the residents have been moved to Franz Anderson into the new tiny home village. Department of Transportation is working on cleaning it in the next week and a half. So that camp should be completely cleaned and hardened also by mid next week or end of next week. Moving forward, city center camps will be targeted next for outreach, engagement, and housing. Currently, there are about 19 or 20 individuals that are residing in that camp, and then simultaneously the Nickerson camp, which is the camp across the street from Wheeler camp, will be moved nearly simultaneously. So all of those camps will have been cleared, and folks will be offered housing, and they will have moved into that housing by early to mid-November. There are about 118 residents currently living at Maple Court. There are 8 rooms that are available and 4 that need some work. So they're all told about 12 rooms available pretty soon. And then the Franz Anderson will be housing any of the residents from, I think they're going to be focusing primarily on Nickerson Street residents into those villages, or I'm sorry, not villages, into those tiny homes. So that's right of way. There's also an RFP or not an RFP, but they're accepting proposals for extra right-of-way funds for Thurston County. So we'll be working on that. And as soon as we have more details, happy to report on what will be going into that, the proposal. Yeah, so that's right-of-way. The only other update I have is the point in time count for 2024, where we're starting planning for that event. So it will occur as it does annually on the 3rd Thursday of January. And so you'll be hearing more about our plans as we move forward. And that is what I have for you today.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, Keely, when these camps are moved out and all the garbage is left behind, is that up to the individual jurisdictions, or do you help on any of that coordination?
No, that is Department of Transportation. They are responsible for that. So they are doing the cleanups. I think the exception might be the city center camps, where City of Olympia has offered to take care of that cleanup effort, but it's all of the right-of-way initiatives include the cleanup.
I guess the one I'm referring to that seems, I don't know, as an eyesore, I guess, is down by Capitol Lake, just below the courthouse where the restrooms are. That camp was apparently cleaned out up above, next to the Red Lion and the courthouse there. But for those folks that use that restroom and walkway area, I mean, they're looking across the street at a garbage dump. And I don't know if that's the City of Olympia's or if it's Thurston County's, but it's really it's pathetic that that's the view. You know, we've got such a nice facility there and a lot of people use it for walking. I believe we raised plenty of money on this homeless thing, even if it took money out of our own, amount of money, because it's a direct result of the homeless activity when we clean it up. So I think it's a valid expenditure of our own funds. But I don't know that that's the county property or the city property. But somebody ought to do something about that. Could you at least be asking about that as a spin-off, residual dilemma that we're faced with, on this whole homeless thing?
So Kaylee, correct me if I'm wrong, if I could jump
Sure.
in, Commissioner, is that when it came to the encampment that was near the courthouse and that was closed, the county was on the hook for the cleanup expenses.
Because it was our property.
If it falls to, if it's City of Olympia controlled property, then it would fall to the city to take on that expense for the.
Well,
cleanup.
if it was the county's situation, that side hill, is that part of the county's property as
I
well?
don't think all of it.
Not all of it, some of it.
But
And we
Could-
cleaned up our property and then we
on
put a
top of the
fence
hill,
around
it
it.
is cleaned up and has a fence around it.
That's right,
But-
that's our property.
But I would encourage my seatmates and staff to go by there and take a look at what I'm talking about. It's just a hell of a situation that we have to contend with that. And I would hope that it won't be there, 6 months from now or whatever, because soon as the foliage starts dropping for the winter, then it's really gonna look bad. I mean, it really looks
Sure.
bad now. I do have a picture of it that I took, if
I-
anybody's interested, but please go by there.
So I
Let's
don't
see.
disagree, but that's City of Olympia property.
And I think, Keely, that is one that is actively being managed by the city.
If it's in the ravine,
Yes.
yeah, so that is, I have gone out there a number of times, when County Manager Ramiro Chavez, asked for me to go out and make contact with them. I was under the impression that that was county property, but within City of Olympia. But I could be wrong. We can definitely check it out,
We
but
find out, we've gotta have enough money, we can clean up that garbage out of the homeless home fund or something.
So I've already, we will check again, but Jason Ash, our facilities manager, had already checked and said that everything on our own property had been cleaned and that the parts that are not belong to the City of Olympia. So we'll double check and we'll look at it again. But
Mhm.
we had followed up on that.
Well, if it's from the city of Olympia, I'm wondering, Keely, could you coordinate with Darian, from the city of Olympia and let them know, kind of when they're planning to go clean that area up? Just give them an FYI that this is, that's going on. And then maybe we can follow up with the board later, once you kind of get that confirmation from them, and Robin will check with
Yeah,
our own facilities and make sure that our side at least is cleaned up. And then we can,
Yeah, and some of that property the state patrol takes care of, some of the enforcement activity around that rest room in the Lake Drive area.
it's because
So,
it's state
it-
property.
Cause it's state property,
Right.
so, it's right there, I mean, if you measured it in feet from the edge of the roadway, it's probably only 20 feet.
It's
but
right there.
It's right there, just full of garbage dumped, so I don't know, I really don't know whose it is, but could we look into, I guess, like Madam Chair said, if we can just look into that.
Yep,
See if we can
I
get a
can do
handle on it, looks like the Dickens,
yeah, I'm happy to look into it.
thank you.
questions, Commissioner Menzer? Keely, as I've driven past Letterkenny and I've definitely seen the change. But I'm wondering, has there been, what's been kind of, when people are moving, right? I know that we did a lot of pre-work in order to facilitate the move. But I'm just wondering how it kind of all played out as people are getting moved out, and have there been any issues?
Yeah, so City of Olympia and Olympia Mutual Aid Partners have been spearheading all of that engagement, and Olympia Mutual Aid Partners primarily have been providing the transportation for individuals moving into either Maple Court or to Franz Anderson. They move about 10 to 15 people per week, depending on what's available and the capacity of Maple Court, et cetera. And so the only issue I think that they've encountered is that the by name, making a by name list. So Olympia Mutual Aid Partners have been working on a by name list for quite some time. Department of Transportation felt overwhelmed, or actually Commerce felt overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of people living on Slater-Kenny. So they engaged I2 Solutions, I believe, which is a consultant group that the Department of Transportation had been contracting with for right-of-way initiatives in Spokane. And so they came in also to help with managing the moves. And so they had their own by name list. So there was cross-referencing between the lists. There were a number of individuals that were not housed. I don't know the total, but I think it's around 40 or 45 people were asked to move and were not offered housing because they were not on those initial lists that were created, or maybe they were engaged with Only Map back in the spring of 2023, but they had moved on and then they came back. Well, they were no longer eligible because they had left Slater-Kenny. So unfortunately, quite a large number of people were not housed.
Okay, thank you.
And very few people have left housing that have been offered it. So predominantly at this point, people, if they've been offered housing and they've moved into housing, they have remained in housing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions for Keely?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keely. Moving on to the Habitat Conservation Plan update.
Morning, Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Hopefully Brett Burris is there at the table. Okay, great. This is Brett's handoff to the HCP Review monthly update to the board. So take it away, Brett.
Thank you. Brett Burris, I'm the Development Manager for Community Planning and Economic Development. So here are the current numbers that we have thus far. For the HCP applications, there have been 112. Of those that have been canceled or withdrawn are 4. There are 18 to do at this point, and 90 have been reviewed and completed. Of those that have been reviewed and completed, the fee paid for the certificate of inclusion is 45. Avoided or excluded is 24, and that review means that through the process, it's been determined that they are not impacting pocket gophers. Pending payment, meaning they're waiting for the applicant to pick up their certificate of inclusion, is 21. From the last meeting, there were a couple of additional items that the board requested. What's the number of applications by service area? Depending on where these applications are in the process is depending on the data that we have. So this is not complete because we have not completed all of the applications thus far. But for the Olympia Pocket Gopher, there have been 10 applications. For the Tenino, there have been 7. For the Yelm East, there have been 16. For the Yelm North, there have been 26. And for Yelm South, there have been 29. An additional information as requested is what is the breakdown of application by size of impact. Again, this is data that has been input for those that have been completed. There are still projects in review, but impacted 0, which would be the avoided or excluded, would be 22. From 0.1 acre to 1 acre, there have been 67. From 1 acre to 5 acres, there have been 1. And from 5 to 10 acres, there have been 0. And from 10 to 50 acres, there have been 1. And then nothing over 50 acres at this time. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Go ahead.
That's good information, and it's a lot of information. Could we get a copy of your, information there so we've got those numbers? I started to write them down, but then I started mixing them up, so I guess
Might
I'm
have
a
went
little,
too fast too, so I
I'm a little
apologize.
slow, thank you.
I'm happy to provide that information.
Thank you, but that sounds great. Sounds like you guys are really getting lined out.
Thank you.
Oh, and Commissioner, I think I'd say the big number is 112 in, 90 completed.
Yeah. That's quite an accomplishment if you think about what we've been through, you know, over the last 10 years.
Brett's team has been amazing.
We've also, I talked about in passing, is there some way to create whether it's through Power BI or some other tool, to create some type of a dashboard for the HCP webpage that could easily be available or updated so that you'd have more information at your fingertips, but
I
not wanting to create more work.
I do think one of the questions from maybe last month were dollar amount impacts, you know, that were just kind of roughly it's from $1,000 to 14,000. I don't know what it is, but I think that, because that was a big issue to the citizens during the time this whole thing was coming together. And I realize you won't be able to put an exact number, but just kind of so we get a range of, for that, those smaller properties, it was $427 average. I don't care how you do it, just, so I've got something to respond. I get quite a few inquiries from citizens about, well, what are we gonna have to put up? What are we gonna have to do if we do put in? Well, the history is that you might have to pay $700. I can't give them that answer because I don't know. So, if you could.
That's information we can dig into to see if we can get you a number
Yeah,
or a range.
just roughly. Doesn't have to be exact.
Questions? Yeah,
And
a sheet
Oops,
would
sorry.
be nice for us. Definitely, I was trying as well to
Yeah,
write all
we're
the
trying to
numbers
keep
down,
up
but,
too. I wanna listen to you as well as write. I can't do it in both. I guess I'm kind of slow.
okay. Thank you.
But thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on to the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of September 19th, 2023. Call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, September 19th agenda. We have a presentation today, and that's National Voter Registration Day proclamation.
Yes, this proclamation was requested by the auditor. It is to proclaim today as National Voter Registration Day. And the auditor will not be here, but I do believe that members of her staff.
I think so. I've been in communication with her executive assistant, but she hasn't specified who they have planned to attend this afternoon. I can follow up and try and get an update for you before this afternoon's meeting.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay. Next, there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
No update at this time.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards? Questions, Commissioner Menser? Maybe as the county manager's update, we could provide the information that Commissioner Edwards relayed last week about the area agency on aging, that they found a location since they did come and provide public comment. And so that would be a good update that Commissioner Edwards did follow up with them, and they have found a location which they will be moving into.
Over by the IHOP on Lily Road in Martin Way. I don't know the exact building, but it's right there in that interchange, right next to IHOP.
And when, do you know when they will be moving?
I think they're supposed to be done at the end of the month
Okay,
and set up for business there. That's,
so just say they'll
We
be
can-
moving there.
We can try to get a little more information on it. Sure,
Okay.
I'd be happy to announce that.
thank you.
Any additional Okay.
Thank you.
Consent items A through I. First item, item 3A, is approval of the voucher list for the week of September 4th.
Yes, the voucher list is on the consent agenda this week. There are no items for payments regarding tenant improvements at the atrium.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3B from the Commissioner's Office is County Manager leave balance.
This item is because current county policy includes leave buyout rules for most county employees, but there is not a provision for leave buyout for the county manager. So this proposes 60% payment of unused leave balance when the county manager separates from the county. Proposed by HR.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And is that the same way we treat other exempt positions when they leave?
So I would have to check that. Our personnel policy has leave buyout rules. It depends on if you have traditional leave or alternative leave. Your sick leave is bought out into a VEBA account, and vacation leave is bought out up to a maximum number of hours under current county policy. But I will check with HR to see how this aligns with that.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to this. I just want to make
Right.
sure that we're treating all of our employees fairly. And so in that exempt category, I think is where we need to look. I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we make sure we do it right. And it could set precedents for any other exempt position. So, I mean, if that's the standard, that's the standard,
Right.
no problem.
Our
Just trying to
other-
make sure we get it right.
Sure, our other exempt positions are covered in current county policy.
But are they the same as this, and could there be an argument
I will check.
of any special treatment, or that we didn't treat everybody the same?
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I have the same concerns. I don't understand everything you just said about the other people's leave buyout. So why is this on today's consent agenda?
I don't know why it was placed on today's consent agenda. Romero had mentioned this at our review last week.
Why can't we put it on next week's agenda?
I don't know, I'm gonna
Yeah,
check
that-
with Maria to see if there's a time issue connected to issuing his last paycheck. So there could be something related to that, and we are by law required to issue final pay within a certain amount of time.
Is Maria available now?
That is a great question.
Well, I don't know if we can get a hold of Maria. We can move on from this item, and then if she's able to join us, we can come back to this. But I have, the county manager touched base with me shortly about it, but we didn't really discuss it really at length. So I have the same questions in terms of, is this following the policy from our other exempt employees? And
Is it fair to all concerned, I guess? I'll give the Rotary test here. Is it fair to all concerned?
so, okay, so we'll go ahead and,
I believe Maria is also planning on attending later on for the health insurance premium presentation, but I'll make sure that Katie reaches out to her to see if she can pop in.
okay, so then we'll have this item on hold and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
And then by that time, hopefully Maria can help answer some of our questions, see if there's a timing issue that why we have to address this today, and we'll move on from there. Okay. Item C, D, E, F, G, H are all appointments to the Fair Board, and this was what we discussed last week for Michael Carney, and I will not go over all the names because I will mispronounce every single one of them.
I would as well, but
Yeah.
These are applications that the board has reviewed and approved last week, so they are on your consent agenda today.
There's Maria.
Oh, there's Maria. Oh,
Oh, thank you.
you heard us summoning you.
Summonings and phone calls and.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, any questions on the appointments of the Fair Board?
No, I'm good with it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go back to item 3B then. And this is the county manager compensation of 60% of unused leave balance. And so we had some questions in regards to this match our policy that we have for other exempt employees. How does it kind of fall in line? Any additional questions?
The timing issue was
The
Commissioner
timing
Mensah.
issue.
Does it have to be today or can
Well,
they
it's
delay it?
fine. If you're here to explain it, I just didn't know if we were gonna get our questions answered.
I'm just trying,
So
I
the
wanna
timing
be
issue
fair
is
to
not a
all-
problem.
everybody.
We all wanna know, we don't really understand how it would work if he was, is this just consistent with?
So I think first of all, the county manager position is not in any kind of a pay plan. It's a standalone, so when the position's hired, you negotiate the terms of the position. In terms of what's in the personnel policies, Tara has that information. And so if somebody is leaving county employment and not retiring, what would,
So for all other non-represented employees on the alternative plan, they would be cashed out for a maximum of 300 hours if they're just leaving and not retiring. I believe on the traditional plan, the vacation would be cashed out to a maximum of 280 hours.
So if that's a flat number, why are we dealing with a percentage here? Is this your proposal, Ramiro's proposal? What's the net effect of that?
so when he was hired, I'm not sure what the terms were, if there was agreement for a 60%. I'd have to do some of that research.
Is there a timing issue that we couldn't get all those answers?
We would just need to know before his final paycheck is cut, which would be,
That would be the 25th of October will be his final paycheck, so
Okay.
yeah,
We've
we
got
have
a
plenty
little
of time.
We've got
Yeah.
time.
Okay, well then, we'll go ahead and remove this matter from today's agenda, and we'll address it next week. And so we'll get a follow-up to kind of, I think, if it was the terms of hiring it, if it was in there, then, we'll go with that. But
Yeah,
if
we
it's
wanna
just,
go with
yeah.
whatever we set up.
But if it's just something different, then I think we just need to be clear on kind of how we landed on that 60% instead of the 300 hours.
okay, we'll do some research and provide you that
And
information.
maybe the potential of setting a precedence for down the road or
Okay, all right.
whatever. No, I don't think anybody's objecting to this whole thing, just wanna make sure we get it right.
Any additional questions for Maria at this point about this matter?
No, we're just
No.
removing it from today's agenda.
And if there's any, I mean, you missed part of our meeting, so if we ask something that we passed over that or something, you could at least take a look at the
I'll go
last
back and
10
listen.
minutes. And
Yeah, I'll go back.
make
and
sure
listen.
we get the questions right.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. We'll address our last consent item, which is item 3I from Public Defense, and this is a resolution establishing a defense attorney 3 in the Thurston County Pay and Classification Pay Plan. We reviewed this item last week. This is the second part to an item. Go ahead.
Right.
Assistant Commissioner.
Thank you. So this establishes a defense attorney 3 position. This position is grant funded, and it is to perform specific duties about incarcerated individuals who are, it's the special commitment individuals, and it is 100% grant funded. It does not have an end date. We anticipate that the grants will be continuing from the state And the board has asked that there be a proviso in the upcoming budget that states that when grant funding ends, that the position would end at that time. So, anything you'd like to add?
No, good morning, Commissioners. Patrick O'Connor, Director of Public Defense. I think Robin stated, summarized the resolution accurately. We did follow up, as we discussed this item last week with HR. And you'll see the third whereas in this resolution, Commissioner Mejia addresses one of the issues that you raised, that this fund, this position would be abolished should funding not be available to the county.
And the pass-through money is coming from the state as part of their responsibility on these more serious cases, is that right?
Correct, yes. These are the not guilty by reason of insanity defendants that we represent, that have constitutional rights to counsel that we've represented. In the past, the State Office of Public Defense changed the law and directs the State Office of Public Defense to compensate public defender representations on these matters. So they changed the law. We have a contract with them that will provide these services exclusively with one individual attorney. And but should that funding or the law change in the future, this position would be abolished.
Did this have anything to do with the True Blood decision?
No, it didn't. Yeah, it's sort of two different issues there, but I think this is more of an effort in my conversations with State Office of Public Defense to advocate for state funding for public defense and then being a pass-through to fund those counties and municipalities throughout the state of Washington providing public defense services.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Munson? No questions. Thank you so much, Patrick.
I won't be here this afternoon unless you need me to.
No, it will be on the consent agenda, so.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to department items. We only have one today. Item,
Short meeting.
yeah, 4A, contract award for Boston Harbor and Tamishan Water and Sewer Improvement Projects.
Thank you. This item is for architect and engineering services for water and sewer improvements in Boston Harbor and Tamishan. These are projects that are being funded by ARPA that the board approved as part of the COVID recovery plan. And I would ask Joe to add any additional information.
Thank you, Robin. The only item to add is we went out for RFP for these design services. We received one proposal in the amount of and then negotiated a contract amount of about $535,000. And the proposal was from KPFF Engineering. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Not at this time, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? Okay, no questions for me. Thank you. So then that will conclude our agenda. We'll review our standing items and then we will pick up at 3:30. We have two public hearings set. The first one is the Grand Mound Sub-Area Plan Public Hearing.
Okay.
Are we gonna? Are you gonna handle them in that order? Because I'm sure there'll be much more comment on Grand Mound than the other one.
So I think I'll take it by, I've switched it before depending on how many people show up for a public hearing. If there is quite substantial for Grand Mound, then I'll go ahead and address the Planning Commission item first and then
I think
Grand
that's
Mound.
fine. They're set for the
yeah.
same time.
But if it looks like it's around the same, then I'll just go in this order unless the board has a preference of addressing them in a different.
If there's nobody for the planning commission, then it wouldn't matter. But if there's like just a couple people and then a lot of people for the other one, then you'd be making those people wait for
Yeah.
a long time for no real good reason.
Maybe I can have a solution here to that. when it comes to the planning commission hearing, by reviewing what's been laid out so far and my follow-up with some of the planning commission members and my own concern about the number of appointments that we might have and what's coming up in January when we move from 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners. I have additional concerns on how we're gonna make these changes. And I've been told, I think I asked Robin maybe this last week, that if we have the hearing, or maybe it was Romero, I really don't know, so you can correct me. But if we have the public hearing, we can still make adjustments after the public hearing before we make a final decision on what's been presented.
Yes.
Yes.
But to me, it seems like what has been presented is considerably different from my view of what is about to take place and whether or not that meets, we had a dissenting vote by the chair on that issue when it was brought forward to us. So it was a 2-to-1 vote. We kind of beat up on the chair and moved ahead. And what I'm wondering about is if my concerns are enough to change that, because I'm kind of headed towards the position the chair had. Now, my concern about having the hearing is that eliminates one step in moving forward. So theoretically, we could have the hearing and take a vote right after the hearing and the issue would be over at whatever we come up with. I've had second thoughts, mainly because in talking with planning commissioners, it was brought to my attention that there was never any input solicited from the existing planning commissioners. And do we want to have their input brought into this? Because they're the ones, you know, we're making the changes because we're 5 commissioners coming up. We're going from 3 to 5. But we didn't seem to get any input. Am I wrong on that, Jeremy? Did we?
We actually did send the draft ordinance out to the planning commission subsequent to the board setting the public hearing, to let them know of the public hearing and the ability to give input to the Board of County Commissioners for the hearing and the public record. We did not take the ordinance to one of their planning commission meetings, though.
And I had separate conversations, email exchange with a couple, at least 2 of the planning commission members.
And I've had an individual conversation with one of them that was some time ago. So, but that's not public testimony on the record, of course.
Yeah, nothing official. And then there was another ripple thrown into the process, and that is there's 2 RCWs apparently that address planning commissions and appointments of planning commissioners. Does that make sense?
Certainly. So there are 2 RCWs in state law regarding planning commissions. There's 3670, which is a pretty standard one for most counties. Thurston County opted to go under RCW 3563 Planning Commission, which is an optional code we can choose to do a long time ago. So yeah, there are 2, but Thurston County is currently under 3563. And it was our previous recommendation to the board to remain under 3563 because it does allow you more authority over the planning commission. It makes it more of your planning commission versus what's prescribed in state law for it.
And the idea behind the current recommendation was sort of placing the same number of 9, keeping the consistency there, A, the enabling legislation, but B, having 9 for 9, and then trying to come up with a proposal of 1 per district and 4 at large to maintain the 9. But if it's the will of the board to make some other alternative, I think just procedurally, just so that we don't slow the process down, so that we can begin to start doing this additional recruitment. It's possible to, I mean, just from under Robert's rules of order to, have the hearing, close it, move the, the ordinance that is before the board today, have that seconded, and then propose an amendment to that ordinance to reflect what the boards would like to see, and have that stand for a vote, which would amend the ordinance, and then subsequently.
Okay, and that
Could be
process,
that,
No.
well, excuse me.
or,
Let me just finish my thought before I lose it. It seems to me that we kind of got the cart before the horse a little bit in not running this ordinance as proposed that we've seen through the planning commission process. And then there's an RCW that has to do with, and I don't know which one of these it is, has to do with appointing or removing planning commissioners from their position. Did we get legal advice on all of this that we're okay on whichever way we go? I mean, that's, so if we make a change kind of after the fact, I'm wondering if we're covering all of our legal bases. So I guess because there's certain unknowns yet that we're not sure of, I think I'm going to opt for, because I don't know what the rush is for sure. I mean, I don't, we want to get it done. But do we want to have participation from the 2 new commissioners, whoever they may be, so we'd have 5? Or do the 3 of us want to make that decision for the 5? So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. I'm kind of thinking myself that we ought to just have 5, if we have 5 commissioners, we can have an even number. We can have 10 planning commissioners, because mostly there's never a full board at any one of these operations they have. They might have 7 there, or 8 or 9.
So if I may, we did, at your planning session regarding this item, we did have Travis here at your meeting, and he did provide you advice on the point of whether or not you can rescind the current appointments and appoint new ones, and he did give you the advice that you can take that action. So he was here and he did give you counsel on that during the open planning session, which of course was an open public meeting. The board can, with its authority, subsequent to the public hearing, make amendments to the draft ordinance on the number of appointments that we have, so you could go to 10. You could also decide to apportion them indifferently, so it's 2 per district, which has previously been discussed. And you could also change the appointment of the planning commissioners, keep the current ones and reappoint them to the new positions or whatnot. And we can, if we do that last one, we will need some time to develop what that scheme would look like. But absolutely, it's your planning commission and it's your decision on how you'd like to shape that planning commission. I would note that state law does not require us to go to the planning commission on this particular code change. This is something that the board forms and you decide on, and previously the board has made those decisions. And to my knowledge, without consulting the planning commission on that, and the last time that was changed, I think, was back in the 80s.
Do we normally go to the planning commission for most things? I don't know, I don't know.
So
Mostly would be the, land use type of
It's all
items
land
that are
use type
going
stuff?
through, not the governance or organizational
Right.
side of
Okay.
things.
yeah, and our code actually specifies what we take to the PC, and it's development code and comp plan amendments.
I might be at fault here for not paying closer attention early on. I feel guilty now because I beat up on the commissioner, on the chair, I guess, on not going with her point of view. Not that I beat up on her, I mean, it just, I was kind of, oh, hell, okay, but I've had second thoughts about this, and if we're not in a rush, I would say, let's just take this one off for the public hearing for today, can have our other public hearing, and we can get these things hashed out a little better towards what we present. And I'm not saying it has to go to the planning commission. I'm not saying it has to do anything. I'm just saying maybe we're kind of in a push here when we shouldn't be in a push. And that's why I'm just gonna, I mean, I'll make that recommendation or make a motion that we remove this for today's planning, for today's public hearing on this particular topic until we can spend a little more time on this rather than right now. So rather than
So
trying to hash that through now.
One question for me is, can we strike a public hearing once it's been noticed out?
It's problematic.
Yes.
Okay, when you guys say, I'm looking at Josh up there, he had his hand up a minute ago, and when I'm hearing this, I wish we had an attorney here that was able to answer a question when it comes up like that.
I think that we need to hold the public hearing. It has been noticed and it's today. But it would be easy for you to only have one motion to close the public hearing and not take a motion on amending the form of the commission. And we can get a work session on your schedule to review how you'd actually like to move forward.
And should the board desire to hold another public hearing, we can always set one with you.
Yep.
To take further public comment on it.
Okay.
Are you okay with moving forward that
I,
way?
I would prefer not to, but I'm okay
If we're
if it
hearing
does.
public comment, I already received public comment, kind of doing the preference of what you're saying of 10, which was my initial preference, still is my preference to have 2 appointments by commissioner. And, you know, one of the reasons I voted to have the public hearing was because I was like, it will give us all an opportunity to hear from our planning commissioners. I know that I've talked to my planning commissioners and I've asked them, you know, to come and relay their preference out into
Okay.
this public hearing. And so I don't think we lose anything with having the public hearing. I do agree, though, that we do need a separate work session that was going to be, unless, you know, there was a consensus to move forward with this, and then I would have been outvoted, but it seems like you're kind of on the same plane that I am.
I am.
So then at that, I think we do need a work session to kind of discuss this and maybe make some changes, and maybe there's something that comes up in public comment today that we would like to
Think about
change
it.
additionally.
Yeah, okay.
So it just gives us a good moment to, I think, just hear from the public on this. And we've already received, I've received a couple of emails in regards to the planning commissioner and thoughts about that. Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Questions? No, I don't have any questions.
You have
Lots of
comments?
thoughts, but
Go ahead.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I don't have any interest in continuing the public hearing. The planning commissioners, as you say, or if they have opinions, this is a governmental structure thing. This isn't anything that has to do, this is our decision, not theirs. And if they have thoughts about it, they can come to public comment today. And I started out advocating for the 10. I actually changed my position based on, after I thought about it, and now I'm not on that plane because I think that, I may be biased because I don't have 2 planning commissioners that are in my district. Once the new districts start, I only have 1, but I think that by having 4 at large, we can really balance, we can make sure, because when you have each commissioner doing 2, it can be polarizing, it can be not a good group, and I think having each commissioner do 1 and then work together to pick 4 that have the right skills and that we can all live with, for compromise, will help balance and kind of ground the planning commission. Staff convinced me of the wisdom of their proposal because I initially wanted the 2 per commissioner. But I like the staff proposal. Certainly I'm fine with, closing public hearing and, talking about it later after we discuss what we hear, but don't have any interest in delaying things either to let two new commissioners come in who don't really know anything about this, or to have planning commission review it, which, again, I don't think it's within their purview.
Yeah,
No, I was just gonna ask Madam Chair, Josh, he did have his hand up at one
Oh.
point. I don't know if he wants to say anything.
Josh?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. I think this has been a good discussion. I would just highlight that this is the process, that the board has had work sessions. I think that there's been some really thoughtful considerations into the proposal. Staff didn't come up with this proposal in a vacuum, and that legal has reviewed at all steps, and that no cart before the horse, given the information has been presented and the process is for the planning commission to provide their input at the appropriate time. I think Commissioner Minzer hit it right on. This is a governmental structure concept. The impact of delaying, however, a decision, the reason that we're moving so quickly on this is in honor of the board's direction to move the docket items quickly. If we don't have a fully formed functioning planning commission, then when we head into the next year where we start the comprehensive plan, we'll be working on an organizational structural issue with the planning commission and not the policy issues that the board has directed us to. So that, from my perspective, keep that in mind in terms of how you make your considerations in terms of delay or proceed.
And that was the same point I was going to make, just from one of the pieces of counsel we received from Spokane County when they made their transition, that they didn't handle the planning commission in advance, so that what that led was a huge delay in terms of the work that needed to be done in going through the planning commission, because they didn't form it on a timely matter. And the difference between what's proposed and the 10 really means that you're down, 4 versus 2, right? Because you would have the opportunity under the current proposal to do one from each of your districts, as well as start to grapple with the 4 at-larges. That would give you 7, leaving 2 to basically wait for the new commissioners to come on board. If it was the 10, 2 each, right, we would then have potentially 6 decisions going into next year, with 4 remaining, and not knowing just how quickly those could be filled from the time that those new commissioners are seated to, getting up to speed and being able to select them.
And I just hope whatever we do, we will follow the process where we can reset our nominations, because I only have 1 commissioner left. So I don't know where you guys are in terms of your commissioners and where they live, but I want the opportunity to do a reset. We can renominate the same people if that's what you want, but I think each commissioner should have that latitude. Because I heard some suggestion that we would change that, and I definitely would be upset if that were if I were outvoted on that.
So we'll have the public hearing, but there is a request from 2 commissioners to have an additional work session on this item. So we will not be.
No motion to amend the
No motion
ordinance.
to amend unless there is a motion and 2 commissioners decide to move forward on this afternoon.
All right, we'll work with your clerk of the board to schedule that work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Maya, thank you. Thank you for holding. Okay, going to the Grand Mound. Is there anything?
So on the Grand Mound public hearing, this hearing is on the Planning Commission recommendation for the Grand Mound sub-area plan. There have been 4 open houses held. The Planning Commission held 6 work sessions and a public hearing. The Board of County Commissioner held work sessions on May 17 and August 3rd. And this is again regarding code and land use changes in the Grand Mound sub-area plan. And then Maya, would you have anything to add?
The only thing I will add is that the hearing today covers the Planning Commission recommendation, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of all of the items that are included in today's hearing, which is an update to the 1996 Grand Mound Sub-Area Plan, 2 associated code changes to Title 20 to adjust for lot widths and also incorporate design guidelines for Grand Mound, and then 4 land use and zoning amendments that fall within the Grand Mound urban growth area. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Maya, do we have the ability in this proposal? I know we're not going to be deciding today, but when we do decide, can we take pieces apart, like there's of the land use proposals within the UGA? If there's 1 or 2 where we don't want to approve it or we want to delay it, maybe for further review, which would probably mean till next year because these only happen once a year, is that within our purview?
Yeah, the board definitely has the opportunity to choose to do some rezones and not all of them. And you could also choose to not take an action on a few of them. We do have a briefing scheduled for 30 minutes next Monday, and we'll walk through the decision points for the commissioners. And at that time, we can discuss kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down approach of what your positions are on some of those pieces.
Just 30 minutes.
30 minutes was the only time that was available. I know it's a short time.
Yeah, that won't be enough time, I don't think. This is a big one. And so I'm looking at Jamie, maybe we can have like an overview of 30 minutes. I don't think we're gonna get through in 30 minutes.
When was that supposed to be set for?
Monday.
Monday from
Monday.
2:30 to 3.
The 25th?
Yes.
I can do some swapping around with the LMD briefing and put that one directly after your SMP public hearing follow-up. If you'd like, and probably extend that to a full hour.
Well, we could do that 30 minutes, and then, but maybe scheduling, why is everyone so busy?
No, Wednesday afternoon.
I'm not here Wednesday. You and Commissioner Edwards can go ahead and start the conversation, and I can watch the meeting later.
No, I don't think that works very good
Yeah,
myself.
that's not good.
Madam Chair, may I suggest maybe like what Rob was mentioning is we could look at doing like a working lunch on Monday. We have the SMP public hearing follow-up until 1:30, so I could put the public hearing follow-up for the Grand Mound sub-area plan from 1:30 to 2:30 to give it a full hour, and then do the LMD from, what was it, 2:30 to 3.
Okay.
And then that way we'd give you a full hour of conversation on this topic.
Does that work for commissioners?
It's better than 30 minutes.
Okay,
I'll swap it around for y'all.
thank you. And I have a meeting with Robin, so that can,
Yeah, we can easily move that.
we can shift that one around. Okay. Anything else on the Grand Mound sub-area plan? So depending on how many people show up this afternoon for each of the public hearings, if there's only a couple people for the Planning Commission, then we'll go ahead and address that one first. And we see that there's not a lot of input, which I doubt, for the Grand Mound, then we'll proceed with that one first. Okay. Maya, anything, how much public comment have we received? Written public comment for the Grand Mound?
We've received 7 written public comments so far, and I expect to get a couple more before the close at noon.
Okay, thank you. And those will be made available to the board, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, any additional questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of September 26, 2023. Call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, September 26th agenda. There will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
We'll follow up on anything that we hear from this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, next is item 3A, Emergency Services Subrecipient Agreement for FY, what is?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal
Yeah.
year 22 Homeland Security Grant Funding with McLean Black Lake Fire Department.
This is a grant award of Homeland Security funding. And I believe that it is passed through for the fire district. So I'm gonna ask Ben to explain what that would be.
Absolutely. So this is actually on the emergency management side. This is SHSP, or State Homeland Security Program grant funding. What we do as a lead administrative agency is we work with our counties to identify projects that we believe are most reasonable for that project allocation. We had $233,948 $948 to distribute, and this project is $23,413. It covers a number of heavy rescue equipment programs for the SORT team for Thurston County. This team covers Thurston, Mason, Lewis, Pacific, and Grays Harbor counties for issues revolving around combined space rescue, trench rescue, rope rescue, high angle victim rescue, structural collapse rescue, and rapid extrication support.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
But the dollar amount here is the 23,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm good, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munzer?
No,
Okay, no questions for me. Thank you, Ben.
thank you.
Okay, item 3B, Superior Court, a resolution adopting revised Superior Court Commissioner classification specification.
So this item is to revise the classification specifications for Superior Court Commissioner. This includes a requirement for additional training for attorneys that would serve as court commissioners. It is in response to a change to local court rule, and there are no changes in salaries.
Sorry, can you, I don't, that just, what is this doing?
Okay, so.
That didn't sink in very well
Didn't
with
sink
me
in
either.
with me.
I'm sorry, so there, it's a classification change. Like we have classifications for, it's a job spec. So just like there's a classification for a county manager or an accountant, there's classification for a court commissioner. And they are changing that classification to require different or increased training for attorneys who want to serve as Superior Court Commissioners.
Like pro
My
tems,
understanding of the proposal.
to be a pro tem?
Well, let's see what it says. I believe this is for, don't we have permanent appointments of court commissioners?
We do.
Yeah, I believe it's for the permanent appointments. Because pro tem is just a temporary extra help.
Well, you said attorneys, so that means,
So,
that's usually a pro tem is, I'm an attorney, but on occasion I'll get called in to act as a judge.
okay,
But this is talking about commissioners.
this is talking about Superior Court Commissioners, so I'm assuming, since it's a job class, that it is for people that we hire. I think that even temporary hires, pro tems are like extra help, and I hope that someone from HR could bail me out here. I do believe that when we bring in temporaries, that they do have to qualify for whatever the job class is that they receive a temporary appointment in. So what the description says, it says to serve as a court commissioner on a regular or substitute assignment, an attorney shall have at least 5 years of relevant experience in the area in which they are hearing and any other training required by the court. So that is an increase in training requirements. And it does not say what the current requirements are.
I guess I'm curious, how come we're setting training requirements for the Superior Court?
So the Board of County Commissioners approves all job classifications or classification specifications for the county, for all county positions, including the courts. So the court has set a local rule that says people in this position have to have this much training. The Board of County Commissioners is not setting the amount of training. You're approving the change to the job class.
We're just agreeing with what the court's presented?
Yes, because they've passed a local court rule that would require this much
Well, I'm gonna
training.
defer to Commissioner Menzer on this issue.
I'm just curious about the timing of it, why, like.
Because they
is it-
have an empty position right now because their commissioner got appointed to the City of Olympia Municipal Court.
Who got appointed?
Pam Noguera got appointed as City of Olympia's Municipal Court Judge.
She was serving as a
And she was
Superior
serving
Court
as,
Commissioner?
yeah, she was serving in family court as their
So they want to
Commissioner.
up the number of the prerequisites for the applicants who apply for the new
yeah.
job?
And this is just, I'm guessing that's why they're doing it now, is because they have an empty position and, or a vacancy, and that they're going to try to modify.
This is next week, and we can get additional information.
I have some questions in terms of the training, right? It's a local court rule change that the judges decided to hear locally. It wasn't state mandated, it wasn't. And so I guess my question is, you know, I'm just looking at the market right now and what the market is in terms of hiring. And with this additional loop, then are we gonna get a request down the line saying, well, we're not getting enough,
Now we gotta pay more.
now we have to pay more, right? And is this,
Hasn't court commissioners though been very popular in past? I mean, haven't they gotten a ton of applicants?
no, not recently, like it's gone down since I left the court, and just filling those vacancies, they weren't as popular. Or the number of applicants, they weren't, you know, kind of what.
Right.
So I'm just wondering why this isn't more of an internal thing with the courts, if this is something that they want, right? That, why is it specifically on the classification and adding those additional hoops instead of once they're hired, right? In order for you to hire, you're gonna be completing this training. I just,
Right, part of the screening of applicants.
yeah.
All right, I will follow up on those. Any other things that you'd like me to follow up on?
I mean, I would like to just hear from someone, Kristen or someone.
Sure.
What are they trying to accomplish? You know, is this a because we're gonna be doing classification reviews relative to our classification, you know, like, why does this one need to be done? Are they trying to increase applicants, increase quality of applicants? They found something out of whack with the old, you know, what's the problem that we're trying to solve here?
I will see if Kristen is available.
And that's
to come
okay if it
next
comes through
Tuesday.
you, she doesn't have to necessarily sit here, but I'd like to hear, nobody
It'd be
seems
nice
to know
if she were
that.
here, though.
Yeah.
She's currently out of office.
Okay, we'll follow up on those.
Okay, so then there will be
follow-up on item B.
Okay. And you have those questions down, Robin, that?
Yep,
we've
I
read?
do.
Okay, perfect. Okay, department items, 4A from, I thought you had a question, sorry. Item 4A from the auditor's office is the approval of the voucher list.
All right, so this is your voucher list. It is a department item because there is a purchase of defibrillators for this building.
That's a tenant improvement?
That is whenever it is a general purpose related to this building rather than a regular ongoing cost,
But you have to
tag
have,
it.
You can put this on the consent if that's the only thing there is.
That is the only thing. Thank you. We'll move it to consent.
Okay.
Because my question would be the same as Commissioner Mensah, but that's stretching it out.
We do try to,
Thank you for doing that.
yeah, thank you.
So then item 4A will be moved to consent agenda is what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay, moving on, commissioners. This is item 5A. It's a change order request. This is the standing item. Robin, is there an update?
There is not an update at this time, so we will push it out another week.
Okay. Questions?
Is there an expected time you're gonna have this? This is about the 5th time it's been pushed, hasn't it?
We received a proposal for a change order last week from Sierra Cedar. We appointed the negotiation team. Sherry is the lead negotiator for the county. They had set a time, and I don't have an update, but we expected negotiations to last for 2 weeks. So it's gonna be another week.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions on this matter?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on to central services, item 5A, sole source purchase from Stryker.
So this is the purchase of a mechanism that will load gurneys into and out of coroner's vehicles. It is a sole source purchase from Stryker. They have the mechanism that we need, and the sole source has been approved by the internal auditor. And Bruce is here if you have any questions about this purchase.
Questions, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I don't think I have any about the purchase, but hasn't Ben presented this in the past? I'm just trying to.
I do remember it once, yeah.
The electric gurneys.
Yeah, I mean, I know the reason for them and L&I claims and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just curious, how come, not that I don't want to see Bruce here, I just thought Ben presented this before.
I can clarify that. So this is a regularly scheduled replacement for a piece of equipment that's an ER&R because ER&R owns the equipment that is used by the coroner's office. So this is specific to supporting the coroner's operations.
Does that mean that we're gonna surplus one? If we're getting one, or are we supplying another?
This is,
rig?
Bruce, could you explain exactly what it is we're buying? It's not the whole new rig.
So this is a scheduled replacement of the loader that is installed in a truck to lift the gurneys into the vehicle. The vehicle is due replacement this year, and the assessment is that the loader needs to be replaced at the same time as the vehicle and not moved to the next vehicle.
And the only reason I'm asking that question is sometimes we surplus some of these things out to other fire departments that have a need, and maybe that's where Ben comes in.
So Ben fits in with the Medic One vehicles,
Yeah.
not the coroners. vehicles. That's
Well,
the
but are we gonna
connection there.
surplus something? I guess that's my
Is
question.
the loader, well, we'll surplus the vehicle when we surplus that, but is the loader, Bruce, is the loader itself something that would be surplused and usable by someone else?
Depending on the optimal return, we'll either surplus it with the vehicle or separately from the vehicle, most likely with the vehicle.
We'll surplus it with the vehicle
And
that's
is it a
currently
vehicle that
installed.
fire could use, or?
No.
Ben, can Ben come up here
Sure.
and answer this?
Well, to the discretion of the chair,
Your next two items.
right?
And I apologize, Bruce, for stepping in here. We've talked about this a little bit. So the coroner's vans would not be able to be utilized, so the vehicle itself wouldn't be able to be utilized for these services. And when you install these devices into the bed of any vehicle, you ultimately have a cutout that you put into the base of that vehicle, so they don't really come out when you surplus them, just so you're aware.
So, but do we have an opportunity to help some of our junior fire districts that might need this type of equipment that don't have it, or any adjoining fire districts? Even like, sometimes we do things with Mason County, Grays Harbor, Lewis. We try to keep everybody's equipment as, you know.
I'm gonna offer something up here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the best option for this would be to surplus the whole thing together. And ultimately, if a fire district wanted to take that van and basically part it out, that's gonna be the best option. I'd say for the system, the government system as a whole. Additionally, any other coroner's office or ME's offices would be able to pick it up, if they so choose, if it's useful to them. And so I would argue that it's better as a grouping to surplus it out.
But, okay, that's good.
And I would also add that the county has, county code requiring how we dispose of equipment. So we will follow the appropriate rules on making this available to other jurisdictions.
Okay, just trying to save the taxpayers some money, that's all.
It will absolutely be surplused, and if no other jurisdictions want it, we'll auction it off.
Thank you.
Is this like an item that's already budgeted and we're just being asked to approve the sole source?
Yes.
And I think no matter how inscrutable the name of this is, I think it needs to be in the action item, because the agenda just says move to approve sole source purchase from Stryker for the amount, and you don't even know what we're
Okay,
buying,
we will put what the equipment is.
or just something.
Yep.
How long is this? So this is just for the purchase. And this doesn't go through like an RFP or anything, it's just,
It's it's sole source. Because, Bruce, would you explain why it's sole source? I believe this is the only
Outfit that makes it,
manufacturer.
that does the
That-
specific.
Yes, yeah.
So the county owns, or the coroner's office, separate from Medic One, has two gurneys made by this manufacturer to ensure compatibility with our existing equipment. The internal auditor has reviewed this purchase and it meets that criteria.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, thank you, Bruce. Any additional questions for Bruce?
No. Thank you for putting up with us, Bruce.
I didn't answer any questions.
Moving on to emergency services, and Ben is ready for item 6A, purchase of replacement automated external defibrillators, AEDs for Thurston County EMS apparatus.
I feel like we keep talking about EMS today, but thanks for having us today. This is one of those components where we're purchasing a few more than the atrium needs. So this is coming forward as a separate item. We're looking to purchase 132 automated external defibrillators to replace the entire fleet throughout Thurston County emergency services apparatus. This is in response and in coordination with the EMS Council, who voted unanimously as recommending this purchase to move forward. And to do it in a process that's a little bit unique, but has been well vetted with the prosecuting attorney's office, briefed to the budget office and run through the internal auditor, and that we're going to do a purchase with a financing option. So we're going to do a purchase outright and then finance it over the course of 5 years. That's what's proposed in front of you today. The reason that we need to replace these devices is that they've been in the field for over 20 years. Almost the turn of the century is when we bought our last AEDs. And they are currently end of life. And so to bring those back up to being as a part of the system that is supported by Stryker, who is the manufacturer for this, we need to replace these devices now and stop deferring these out. Additionally, we gave ourselves an option in this agreement to do a buyout in 2024, should there be additional funds that we're able to identify in Medic One to purchase that outright in 24 and stop the additional four years of payments. And so that's also negotiated into this agreement. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions. Well, I do have one. So these surplus items will be coming up for disposal
Yes.
at this point. Yep. They go into some country that's underprivileged somewhere or something?
They will go through the predefined surplus path. And after that, I cannot project out where they would end up.
Questions, Commissioner Munson?
I don't think so. Talk to Ben about it separately.
I don't have questions, but I do have a comment. I experienced the malfunction of AEDs in my ride along with Medic One, and as they were trying to connect, and it just kept going down. And it was just like this huge issues that they were dealing with, so, you know, it's, so it's good that they're being replaced, and I might be completely pointing at the wrong equipment because that's how much I do not know, but might be something completely different. I'm looking at Ben, and Ben is like,
For the public that's listening, the device that was an issue has been since rectified and is
Okay,
currently
so then
100%
never
reliable
mind,
in the
I
EMS system.
strike out that statement.
So, clarification.
yes.
Slightly different device, but yes, we need to replace our devices so that we do not have continuing
Yes.
malfunctions.
Yes, Ben was looking at me, he was giving me eyes like, so, got your message, Ben. Yeah, wrong equipment. Thank you.
Regardless, it is essential that we have current equipment that is in good working order because lives depend on it, so.
Yes. And we've gotten very good use out of the equipment that we currently have.
Okay.
All right,
Item 6B, execute lease space agreement with West Thurston Regional Fire Authority for the purpose of a paramedic unit station.
right. This is an extension of an existing lease that expired on December 31st in 2022. It is to have one of our paramedic units located in the, I want to say it's in the Rochester area.
Yep.
Yep. And I'd ask you to fill in any blanks.
Absolutely. Based on a variety of factors, we weren't able to negotiate the lease agreement in a timely fashion. With that, we mutually agreed to function under the previous lease agreement until we were able to effectively negotiate an agreement that we could both live with, I would say. With that, we do have an increase of about $4,300 from the previous lease agreement, but that was negotiated in 2018. And so you have to keep in mind as we move forward, that previous lease agreement was about $16,500 a year. This one's $20,500, about $500 a year. And with that, this is looking to extend out the agreement to 2025 in alignment with our ALS contracts. This also incorporates the language in the lease agreement portion of our ALS contracts that we approve every couple of years. To mimic that language out into these lease agreements so that we don't have to negotiate what a fair market price is, that this lease is now built to increase by CPI. So it takes into account some of the economic factors, and this is establishing a new base with an increase based on CPI year after year, which is mutually agreed upon. With that, I highly recommend the approval of this lease agreement.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munster?
Who's leasing from who?
Thurston County is leasing space from West Thurston Regional Fire Authority for the placement of a medic unit in the reserve at their station on Sergeant Road.
From some landowner, lord?
From, well, West Thurston Regional Fire Authority. Their station is the one that we're housing the 2 medic units in. Station 11.
Okay, but who are the parties to the lease?
Thurston County, West Thurston Regional Fire Authority.
And who's the property owner?
West Thurston Regional Fire Authority.
So it's basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I oversimplify it, but it's basically carving out the space to place and for the ALS of the Medic 1 vehicles, the
Yeah.
medic unit and its backup in the, what would be considered regular fire district space. And so it just carves that out so that the costs associated with that square footage is one that's borne by the ALS or the Medic 1 service versus the fire district.
So what it is the lease space internal to the apparatus bay, the 2 bunkhouses, and office space.
So Medic 1 is leasing essentially from the West Thurston.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
And since it's not one of the ALS agencies, we lease just for the space.
Would you say that by having space there, we improve response time in that
Radically.
area? That's the
Radically.
whole point of doing it.
I understand the concept of the CPI built into the lease, but is that is that a standard provision in this type of a lease arrangement?
They're comparable because it's been incorporated into each of the 3 ALS contracts that we've signed with Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater for their leasing space within that contract. And so this is in alignment with that. So in terms of internal comparables for Thurston County, this is the comparable language.
Most of our leases have some type of escalation built into them.
Any additional questions? No?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Public Health and Social Services, item 7A, Healthcare Authority Contract. This is Criminal Justice Treatment Account.
So items A and B are related. Item A is the acceptance of a grant from the Washington State Healthcare Authority for the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, or CJTA. The county has received these funds for many years. So this contract covers the upcoming state of Washington biennium, July 1st of this year through June 30 of 2025. And the contract is managed by Public Health and Social Services. So item A is to accept the money. Item B takes that money and updates the Criminal Justice Treatment Account plan on how the county intends to use the money. So I'll ask Jen if you would like to add any information to that.
Yep. Thank you very much. That was very good. Just Jen Freiheit sitting in for Shaylin Sowers, the TSD Program Manager. So this funding must be spent on substance use disorder treatment and recovery support services for individuals involved in the criminal justice system. And just for a little bit of clarification, it's slightly different from the TST funding, which can support individuals with substance use disorder or mental health. The CJTA money cannot be used on mental health alone. And the panel that is comprised of representatives from Superior Court, Drug Court, Public Defense, Prosecuting Attorney, the Sheriff, and a substance use treatment provider must agree to the plan for how to spend these funds. And an update of this plan is due next month, October 2023, to the HCA. And so as part of the requirement for the new contract. So it's approximately $370,000 each year.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Thank you, no.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
The plan is somewhere that I can find.
Yep, the plan was actually approved by the local panel on September 7th, and it includes up to 9 uses of the funds, which I can review for you if you like.
Yes, please.
And I think it was attached, but if not, I'll make sure it gets sent.
You said when was it planned? The 7th of September?
The 7th of September, it was approved by the panel.
Yeah, I would like a copy of the plan as well.
You can just send it out if you don't want to go through it right now. I don't know how much in detail there is.
Well, I can just give you some of the 9 categories if that helps, but then we'll definitely send it out. I apologize, I assumed it was attached. So number 1 is substance use disorder assessments when requested by a defendant's defense attorney. Number 2 is the treatment and related services for individuals involved in drug court. Number 3 is parenting classes for CJTA eligible individuals. Number 4 is services to CJTA eligible mental health and veterans court participants. Number 5 is medication-assisted treatment for individuals with opioid use disorder at the Thurston County Jail as resources allow. Number 6 is housing case management and rental assistance for eligible individuals. Number 7 is domestic violence treatment. 8 is services to pretrial services defendants. And 9 is naloxone for overdose reversal as resources allow.
So domestic violence treatment fits somehow,
It is an allowable expense in this grant.
but not mental health treatment.
Correct.
Okay. I don't understand how that fits,
I know,
but
it's-
it's the need, so I won't question it.
I have a couple of questions. Is this group that you mentioned, is it mandated by the state that they have, you know, those are the kind of core people who have to? Is it by was it a previous decision by county commissioners to set up this group to allocate those? How does it work?
So I do believe the key members are in accordance with state law. We'll need to double check that, but I believe that that's how the panel was convened.
Correct.
And again, it's been this group for many years that meets and agrees to how the money will be spent, or proposes to the board the plan on how the money is spent.
Is this annual funding or is it just?
Comes every 2 years, so it's a biennial award.
Okay. So what I heard from most, it's we're funding services is basically it. Did you say if district court was part of these?
Part of the funding?
No.
Panel,
the
part of the panel. Don't
Not that
remember
I know of.
district court being a part of
No,
this
but I will check
particular
just to be
group.
sure.
Just, again, just kind of blurting things out here is, as we're having these conversations about Scram and expanding Scram into what pretrial does, right? We've been funding it with ARPA funds, but
Looking for another way.
if we're looking for another way and this funding, I mean, is this a proposal that this group, maybe not this year since ARPA will be covering it, but maybe next year as they meet up, you know, and look over this proposal as we're considering where can we keep funding this? And from what I've heard from public defense and the prosecutor and district
Very
court,
effective.
it's very effective. And I know that, you know, there was a plan to kind of expand it into more, into something bigger, right? That it would affect Superior Court as well, the jail, and, you know, I know that there was kind of a higher level plan to kind of take it to the next level. So just wondering if this source of funding, with this group as they're discussing, if this can be something that they discuss. I mean, it seems to fit in my mind, right, as something,
It
and
would be only a piece, though. I mean, you know, it's not.
well, I know, it's not the
only a
whole,
little-
but it's something at
Yeah,
least,
It
yeah.
could be something to help.
we'll certainly take that back and see if that fits within the funding scope, but certainly they can have a discussion about it.
Well, and again, not this year, you know, but in future years as, we're looking in that direction, I think it would be a good piece of conversation to consider. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Public Works. And this is a resolution adopting roll of rates and charges for Offutt Lake Management District number 24.
So this is the final step in creating the Offutt Lake Management District. And the board held the public hearing on August 22nd. That was specifically to accept public testimony regarding any errors in the roll of rates and charges. The board, of course, also accepted other public testimony. However, no errors were identified in the roll that is before the board. So you have three options. One, to accept the roll as it is. The second is to amend it for errors, but no errors have been found. And the third is to set aside the roll and direct staff to prepare a new roll of rates and charges. Staff are recommending to the board that you approve the current roll of rates and charges. And we have Tim here today to add any additional information that I may have missed.
Thank you, Robin. That's a great summary. I would just add that the board will have a briefing tomorrow morning, I believe at 11 a.m. to discuss further some of the public comments that were heard at the public hearing. And as Robin said, the board took previous action to form the Offutt Lake Management District via ordinance so that the LMD is already formed. This is just that last administrative step that would allow us to get the information to the treasurer's office for inclusion in the tax rolls in 2024. And with that, I would take any questions the board might have.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
Robin presented us with three options, but I'm curious, should that motion read approving the roll of rates and charges as presented by staff? Should that be, because it sounded like there was some options that we could make, and we're gonna go with the recommendation you're presenting, aren't we, Tim?
Well, I would
changes or
yeah, I would say to that the role of assessment was initially proposed by the community itself. The community itself came forward with a proposal for what rates would be charged to what classifications. So, you know, if there needs to be clarification as to whether the staff has prepared the resolution, that would be fine. But the original rates and charges were proposed by the community itself, if that makes sense.
oh, okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some wiggle room about saying we didn't do it right, so that's all.
The rates and the rolls were proposed by the community and thus drove what was under consideration.
And that's what we heard, and that's what we're going with, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And from a timing standpoint, I know this is one of those last steps that the Offutt Lake Steering Committee needs to be able to kind of finalize their budget and start to really lock in a plan for next year.
Questions?
I'll save my questions and comments for tomorrow's work session.
Oh, wait, what work sessions?
That's on what options you have regarding the district.
I thought that one was on Monday, but I guess. it's got my
Tomorrow's what
wires-
Tim
mo-
said.
mo-
Yeah.
Yeah,
but my
tomorrow is
wires
sort of,
are-
what did we hear from testimony and kind of the follow-up to that?
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Okay, County Manager, item 7A, Soul Smart Silver designation.
So the county has received a plaque in recognition of the county's designation as a Soul Smart Silver County. This is regarding the ease of installation of solar equipment to generate solar energy. Rebecca will know quite a bit more about it. She is not, I don't see her here today. But what we'll be doing next week is just presenting the plaque to the board.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And when you say silver designation, is there also like a bronze and a
Yeah.
gold,
Gold.
platinum, all
Probably,
that kind of stuff?
most likely, yes.
And I'm curious why we're not getting a platinum or a gold award, because I would think that this board would want to make it as easy as possible to adhere to accomplishing the goal that maybe Jen is working on. So,
Yep.
our,
So
that
Rebecca
make
will
sense?
have,
Yeah.
or Rebecca.
yeah,
She'll
Rebecca will
explain
have
what you
additional.
have to do to get
Yeah.
a goal.
Yes.
And King County is, there's, let's see. King County and, Mercer Island. I think the city of Olympia is, no, city of Olympia is,
Silver.
no, they're gold. Yeah,
Is there a reason that we're not? That's what I'm
Issaquah is,
trying to figure out. Cause shouldn't we be, or we're trying to do it?
she'll outlay
Working
everything
toward
on,
it, but
yeah.
yes, she will fill you in on what additional steps will be necessary to move up the ranks.
Questions?
I'm good.
Okay,
This is an element of our climate mitigation
Yeah.
plan, so.
Yep.
It's good to see it be accomplished.
so it is for certain things that when you submit the application, it's for certain things that you submit, and that's how you're, and I'm looking at their email that they sent congratulating us. So basically, they give you kind of credits for each one of the items that you're doing.
It's my understanding that we scored very well in all of the categories that we submitted.
Yeah. So that's great. Does it need an action though for us to accept that, or can it just?
No, this is just, well, I wondered why it was under county manager
President and-
rather than a presentation. But
That's how Rebecca had requested that I put it in, so I mean, I can move it around.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Yeah, let's move it to presentation because it seems more like a presentation rather than, I don't see the action item within it. Okay.
I guess if there would be any action, it would be we accept. Woohoo,
Where,
we're
where's
doing
the check?
great.
Don't we get a check?
Yeah, yeah, giant check, no, just a plaque.
Okay, then after that, we'll have our standing items, and we do have a public hearing. And that's the public hearing for the 6-year transportation improvement program for the calendar years of 2024 through 2029.
Great, the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is a required element in state law. The Public Works Department must submit a 6-year plan. It is related to and actually referenced in your capital improvement program, and you must hold a public hearing. And then I believe we adopt the TIP with a budget.
The budget, you're
Yep.
absolutely.
So, yep, go ahead, Matt.
You did a fine job. Just a few things I'd like to add is, we did advertise this, draft plan where it was located in the newspaper. We have a draft copy available on our Public Works website. We sent it to all the cities in Thurston County. I also want to point out that staff briefed the Board of County Commissioners on the 22nd. So anybody who wants to know anything about the Transportation Improvement Program, I would encourage them to view that website. It is a very extensive briefing. There's no way we'll be able to go into that much detail at the hearing next week. Robin stole the rest of my talking points, so.
One of the more interesting things about the TIP is once the board adopts it, it can only be amended by a unanimous vote of the board. So it's a pretty comprehensive plan.
No
Questions? Questions? No questions for me. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move forward and then we'll take a break after, our standing items, which is proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. Jamie?
Good morning. I did reach out to the auditor's executive assistant, and we're gonna have the elections manager present today to accept this afternoon's proclamation. For boards and commissions, there are a couple of standing and new requests that have been included for your review. You'll find the appointment request for the Fair Board, Racial Equity Council, and the Timberland Regional Library Board of Trustees. I did receive a new appointment request for the Fair Board, and I'm waiting to hear back from the staff contact as far as an appointment recommendation for that new applicant. The standing application for Rebecca Faust was included there as well. The Racial Equity Council met yesterday, and they are recommending the appointment of Deborah Lee as requested. I also received a few new requests for the Hotel Motel Commission and the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Pamela Johnson is no longer eligible to serve on the Hotel Motel Commission, and since Peggy Zimmerman resigned from the Fair Board, she recommended that Kathy McWade replace her on LTAC as well. I reached out to her, and she was interested in serving on that committee and turned in an application, both of which are recommending appointment as requested as well. Outside of any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Yes. So you said Peggy Zimmerman's, I got lost. You said Peggy Zimmerman is withdrawing from the Fair Board, so she asked Kathy McWade to replace her on the lodging tax?
Yeah, she was serving on that one as well.
And Peggy's just decided to be done with Thurston County?
No, Peggy, it sounds like, I haven't received anything in particular that said that, as to why she was resigning, just that she was stepping back.
From both boards?
Yes. And so I reached out to Kathy to find out if she was interested and available in serving on LTAC to replace her, and she was, and so she turned in an application.
So the thing with the LTAC is the members of the LTAC committee have to be representatives of either a entity that pays the tax or an entity that could receive the tax. And so Peggy was representing the fair, who could receive the tax. And if she's not on the Fair Board, then she can't represent on the.
So Kathy McWade is another Fair Board member?
Yes.
Who then would be the Fair Board, but shouldn't the Fair Board decide that? Do we decide which Fair Board member is gonna sit on the LTAC?
You do appointments to the LTAC committee just like you do any other
But it has to be a
committee.
Fair Board
It
member.
doesn't have to be the Fair Board, it could be any entity that accepts LTAC funding or applies for LTAC funding.
It's not a Fair Board seat.
No, it's not necessarily a Fair Board seat.
Um,
It's just that it was easy to get someone from the Fair Board, quite frankly. These have been difficult positions to fill.
Okay, my other question is about the Racial Equity Council. So there's 5 names there, but you said that the council recommends Deborah Lee. Did
They
they
had
not consider the other 4 or?
As far as I understand, they did consider them. The staff contact has had the applications for these for a few weeks now, probably over a month, I believe. And I had been asking her to have them look at them at their next meeting. She didn't provide me any like discussion information as to like why they went with this one particular applicant over the others, and I'm more than happy to follow up and get that.
Well, it might be because, okay, so there's two questions. One is, it might be because there's only one, from their perspective, there's only one opening. I mean, we had the county manager was saying, well, we have the latitude to add a couple of seats, but that wouldn't necessarily be what they would understand. So it may just be that they thought they were supposed to pick the best person or the person that they wanted. But then my question is, but I want to confirm that, meaning I want to know that they considered all 5 of these and advanced Ms. Lee.
Yes, all 5, as far as I understand, and I, like I said, I can definitely follow up with, DV about it. The applications were supposed to have been supplied to the council, for them to review. I do think that she had a bit of confusion herself, as just recently taken over the racial equity, program manager position about the appointment process, and I did explain it, and she was aware that there was the option that you guys could appoint more positions to that council. Whether or not that information was completely relayed to the council, I don't know, but I can definitely follow up and find out the answer to that. I just got a response from her this morning, during agenda setting as to if they had an appointment recommendation or not.
Well, I don't know where my seatmates are. I'm not gonna be comfortable making an appointment until we talk. I think DV should come to the board and we just make sure that we're all on the same page. I don't want there to be any miscommunication about the seats and the evaluation and who's making what decision and what the recommendation's based on. And so that I think should happen, or from my perspective, that should happen before we make this the appointment.
Okay.
Because, and let me just say this as a point of discussion. I don't know the answer to this, but, you know, I don't necessarily think that, you know, we can get input from the council, but, you know, on some boards, on this board, I think maybe they select the person. Is that correct? I mean, everyone is
Well,
different.
Each one is different.
Some of them,
and
it's
I
just a
don't
recommend, you know, we as a
recall
courtesy, we ask, you know, say the ad committee, as a courtesy, we ask them to give their recommendation, but it's totally within our purview to say no. This one, I think, might be structured to where the council itself chooses, and then we're more of a kind of a rubber stamping, so to speak, of what, but I just need to understand that.
That is true of the Hotel Motel Commission. I would have to double check
I'm
the
just remembering that I
racial
think we set it up where the board sets the first 7 and then the actual council builds itself forward, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
pretty new.
I don't remember that piece of it. I think there was the option to add, when it was first set up, to add additional members, but I think it was still coming in front of the board, and then we could, with the recommendation from, but, yeah, I don't mind.
We'll need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
check and double check.
Well,
the-
DV
yeah.
should know,
DV should know.
she either knows or she can educate herself because she needs to know, and then she can report back to us and
Right.
set us straight about what's our role. I don't wanna go less or more than what my role is based on the resolution that we set.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have some context too on the conversation that took place. Was it, I agree, you know, was it just because like, oh, we only have one appointment, so this is who we're recommending? Or if they had kind of the option to expand, right, and they considered that, but they just, you know,
We can follow up.
Right.
It's there, and when it was set up, it was to be no fewer than 7 and no more than 15 members of the council.
And are you able to see from what you're looking at, who chooses the new members?
I'm quickly reading.
The initial resolution 16097 did state exactly what Rob just said, and what, from what I'm reading in it, it says subject to formal appointment by the Board of County Commissioners.
There's nothing in there about the selection of, or the appointment process vis-a-vis the council.
Section 4, the membership and general process and procedures for it, it says that it dictates like what it's supposed to consist of, that they're supposed to be residents of Thurston County from marginalized populations, specifically those that identify as BIPOC. It does have some, you know, further, I can definitely get a copy of it for y'all if you'd like to.
Yeah, I like to review that, remind myself.
Yeah, the committee of, created by the Racial Equity Program Manager, and the committee will review applications received for the council in order to I think that might have only been the initial setup, that there was a community stakeholder committee versus the council itself.
We'll get DV.
Yeah.
So well, let's get DV during this section next week, during the advisory boards and commissions, and then she can kind of walk us through, what's going on with that. And, okay, the Hotel Motel Commission, that's one of the ones that, we just have, did you have, sorry, additional questions?
Those were my questions, although, yeah, no, those are my questions.
So are we, with the Hotel Motel Commission one, it's one of the ones where they make the
Yes.
recommendation and we have to kind of appoint just.
Yes,
So
our interlocal agreement provides that.
that's one of the ones where we're just, yeah.
Yep.
So, and that's Michelle Hudson, and there is a letter from the TPA on there asking, for, them to be appointed. Are we ready to proceed with Michelle Hudson? Maybe can be added to next week's consent agenda? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. And then, so with Peggy leaving the fair board, that leaves, is it that seat, District 3, that is leaving, or is there gonna be an additional seat?
As far as I know, when I spoke with Jenica, it would just leave that one open.
Okay, so then there's Rebecca Fost and Alexandra Roberts.
We haven't been able to get any response from Ms. Faust. I was gonna follow
Oh.
up and that has not occurred, so but does this need to be somebody from District 3?
The seat that we have open is for District 3. It's a District 3 appointment there. I can check in with the staff contact because I'm not sure if it requires that they have to be in District 3 or if you guys can make the decision to appoint from a different district if you don't have any other members applying. I'm unsure myself. I'm not positive on it.
I don't remember the Fair Board being districted out like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
And maybe that, yeah, that's another one that we just kind of need to change around. I'm not sure why it's districted out, honestly, like just, we've had such a hard time recruiting for that, and this is the first time where we haven't had as many openings as we've previously had, I mean, which is great, but I feel like if there are people interested and the Fair Board is, also recommending, right? I think, I don't know, just.
I know that they haven't, because they just recently met, they haven't had a chance yet, I don't believe, to even reach out to the additional applicant and vet them themselves. So I can definitely reach out to staff contact and verify that information and follow up with you as soon as I have it, if you'd like to wait on that one as well.
How do,
So
oh, go ahead.
Just, I mean, the Fair Board is one that we'll probably have to kind of tweak its composition. The way it's structured is such that we'll have to kind of review who's currently on there versus what the dynamic will be. So it's 19 members, 2 from each of the 3 commissioner districts, so we'll have to change that to the 5. Which will most likely address or impact the number that will be at large. Because there are 10 members that are currently appointed as at large, 3 of those being youth, so. we'll
Does
have
it
to-
have to be district specific?
That's the board's choice, it's just how it's been, so we would just have to back that out to make it all at large.
Right now, though, the seat is a District 3 seat and we don't have an active District 3 applicant.
Yeah.
So we really can't fill.
No.
Unfortunately, Ms. Roberts is gonna have to, we don't have an at-large seat or a District 2 seat for her.
Right.
So we're just gonna, she'll have to hang fire while we wait, but those as Commissioner Mejia said, those opportunities come up frequently to join the Fair Board. So I'm sure we can get her in there at some point.
And then the LTAC, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, the Kathy McWade, do you want to wait on that? to have more discussion on it? Or?
Aren't we coming up on the time
Yeah, I
when
don't need any
that's
more
going
discussion
to
on it
meet?
myself.
Yeah, we really need to fill the seat.
Okay,
Then
good.
let's just do it.
Then let's just do it next, at it next week.
If Peggy Zimmerman recommends her, then that's pretty.
Should we be asking if, I don't know how long Peggy served on there, but should we be giving her a certificate or
Yeah.
something?
How long did Peggy
I
serve?
don't know, that's what I'm wondering.
She's been on the
She's on there
Fair
quite a
Board for a
while.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
5 years anyway.
Could we,
Maybe more.
give her a recognition? Could we set up a recognition for Peggy?
It's been more than 5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has.
she's been very active and
yes,
just,
very active.
so I think it's, you know,
COVID years have warped my sense of time.
okay. PIO check-in.
Morning Commissioners, Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. At the BOCC staff meeting a couple weeks ago, I introduced the Continuity of Operations Plan. I received feedback and have finalized that document. I'll be sending that out to our BOCC staff probably today. Anna and I have been invited to participate in a joint information center at Pierce County Emergency Management. I will be there this Thursday from 8 to noon. It is in response to the very large trial that is happening in Pierce County right now, the Manny Ellis trial. And so we will be helping them at their Joint Information Center. And then that afternoon, we will be having a meeting with our county comm staff to introduce 4 different procedures I've been working on, and then also the updated style guide. So we will be making that available to our comm staff. So lots of work going on in the PIO realm. Pending any questions, that's what I have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No.
Questions, Commissioner Munster? Okay, and then there's nothing under briefing public hearing decisions pending, so we'll go ahead. It's 11:20. Let's.
Before we break, if I may, go all the way back to homeless strategies. We do have an update on the property at Deschutes. Jason has been in contact with the city of Olympia. They've been working with the contractor. They have not yet set, as of September 6th, they had not set a date for the cleanup, but they have a plan in place.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it is 11:21. Let's go ahead and take a break.
also on mute.
I don't have the control.
Nope, we're not, we're good.
Or, okay. Okay, we are back from break. It is 11:44 a.m. and we are picking up with commissioner items. And the first item is the health insurance premium for county employees. Jeez, I'm sorry.
Commissioners, Tara Wickline, Compensation and Benefits Manager. I have with me Nasa Kaywood, our Senior Benefits Analyst, and Savannah Landers, our Benefits Specialist. Savannah is going to drive for me today. While she gets that set up. So what we're talking about this morning is our health insurance for county employees for the next year. We've received all our renewal numbers, and what we are here today is to go over the renewals, what they're looking like, give you some options, and ask for a decision in what is going to be what we call the highest standard plan next year. And I'll kind of give you a quick refresher on what that means. So what we do each year when it comes time to set the contributions and deduction rates for the next year, we review the new insurance premiums as they come out, and we come before the board for a recommendation. HR's recommendation is based on a few different things. Obviously, the cost of any premium increases are number one. We look at the impact to employees, the impact to the budget, and as well as any employee recruitment and retention problems. So those are always foremost in everyone's mind as well. First, I wanted to illustrate what medical plans our employees are enrolled in. You can see from this graph that the majority of our employees are enrolled in what's called Uniform Medical Plan Classic. The next favorite plan is the Kaiser Washington Classic. The vast majority of employees are covered on one of these two plans. So as I'm going through and we look at the new rates, my illustrations are going to focus on those two plans. All the other plans affect very few employees. So for 2024, our rate increases for medical were kind of all over the board. They went from 3% all the way up to 21%. We do offer, I think, 9 different plans now. Uniform Classic, which is the most popular. Luckily, that was the one that only increased 3%, so we were happy to see that. But the second most popular, that Kaiser Washington Classic, actually increased 10%. The highest increase, that 21%, actually only affects one employee. That's on a very special plan that's only available for employees that live in Clark and Cowlitz County. So we will definitely be reaching out to that one employee directly during open enrollment to see if he wants to make some different decisions for plans. Now, when it comes to what we call standard versus non-standard plans, how this works is the county pays the full premium for employee-only coverage for all what we call standard plans, and the board determines what are considered standard plans. If an employee enrolls in a plan that is not considered a standard plan, they have to essentially buy up and pay the difference between what the board's going to pay for a standard plan versus what they're paying on this non-standard plan. The highest standard plan is the standard plan that costs the most. This helps us control costs because that's the most that the county is going to pay for anybody's medical coverage. When it comes to dependent premiums, the county pays 85% of dependent premiums, employees pay 15%, but the county also only pays 85% up to that highest standard plan. So again, if an employee enrolls in a higher cost plan, they're paying that 15% plus the difference between what the county will pay for the highest standard plan. So there's an additional buy-up there as well that employees need to be aware of. Do you have any questions on standard versus non-standard before I go on?
Well, I wouldn't understand it if I missed him, so I would wait.
How many I mean, out of the group, out of the pie charts, how many of them are standard and how many of them are not standard?
This past year, we had we had 6 plans that were considered standard plans, and then 4 plans were considered non-standard.
And we'll get to that list on it's coming.
Yeah. So the next slide here is focusing on employee deductions and how they will be impacted by our decision that is made today. We're presenting 3 different decisions, or 3 different options. Uniform Medical Plan Plus, that is the highest standard plan of this year. We're also looking at the Kaiser Sound Choice Plan, which is the plan right under Uniform Medical Plus as far as cost. And then we're looking at Uniform Classic, which is the plan higher than Uniform Plus. So we're looking at kind of the middle, the top, and the bottom. You can see if we go with the top kind of graph there shows the current deductions that employees pay on Uniform Classic and Kaiser Classics. Those are the most utilized plans. And then down below, it shows you what their deductions will be depending on which plan we decide is the highest standard plan. So if we go with Uniform Plan Plus, which is the current plan, you'll see that Uniform Medical Plan Classic subscribers will actually pay less next year than they do this year. Kaiser Classic will pay more, but that's the plan that increased 10%. So it makes sense that that would be more as well. If we decide to go with the Kaiser Sound Choice Plan as our highest standard plan, employees will pay a little bit more on Uniform Classic, substantially more on Kaiser Classic. And then if we go with the Uniform Classic as our highest standard plan, Uniform Classic employees will pay a lot less. In fact, for employee-only coverage, they wouldn't pay anything. Kaiser Classic, again, they're always going to pay more just because of how the rates came in this year. And when we're looking at these, just as a, I guess, sneak preview, we're going to be recommending that we stay with Uniform Medical Plan Plus. So the first box there is what we're going to be suggesting, where Uniform Classic employees are going to pay a little less. And it kind of helps to mitigate a little bit on the Kaiser Classic.
When you say that for the first box, which box is that, Terry?
I mean the first one down here.
So that one right here, the first box.
So
no, the
first
rate.
plan,
Yeah, the rates
see the
that
rates?
say UMP plus.
This one, this is what we're recommending.
Yeah,
That's what they're
right,
recommending.
right here.
Yep, that one.
Okay.
And so we're currently under UMP plus.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what you're recommending.
Yes, that's what we're going to recommend this year. And I will talk about how that affects budget and all that later on, because I know that's always #1 question. So on the next slide illustrates the county's contributions and what that looks like for all 3 of these plans. You can see, just looking at employee-only coverage, this year, the most the county will pay is $845 for employee-only coverage. If we go with the plus plan, it would be $892, just about $55 an employee. If we go with the Kaiser Sound Choice Plan, the county would pay $853. Or if we go with Uniform Classic, we would pay $907. So you can see some of them are pretty good jumps, others not so much. As far as the way this works, budget-wise, we have already, included a 5% increase in the base budget. That's kind of the standard that we do. So depending on which highest standard plan we choose, if we go with Uniform Medical Plan Plus, it should cost about $50,000 more than what was already budgeted, and that's per year. If we go with Kaiser Sound Choice, which is the one that's, the county would pay the least amount on, it would actually save the county over $800,000. But we would be transferring those costs to employees. If we went with Uniform Classic, more employees would pay less, but it would cost the county almost $400,000.
And these are all funds, not just general.
All funds, right?
So that's a 60-40 split.
Well, it's a little different for personnel.
Yeah, it's about 48% general fund and 52% others.
So most people, according to the graph, are on UMP Classic.
Mhm.
But if we identify UMP Plus, they're gonna pay $15.
Correct.
Right now, they're paying 38.
That's correct.
I mean, for one single person.
I have a question, I guess, and it's in regards to the recommendation, so I'm not sure. So with the UMP Plus and the Kaiser Sound Choice, and the Kaiser Sound Choice being,
That's you.
I apologize, thank you. There being a savings of 900,000, or 800,000. I'm just wondering, kind of the way out for, you know, kind of keeping with UMP Plus over moving with the Kaiser. Is it because we lose some sort of services? Like what is?
Well, a big part of the difference in the premiums is just how the renewals came in. Because Uniform Plus was a 6% increase. Kaiser Sound Choice was an 8% increase. But the big difference there is Kaiser Sound Choice is a very limited network. It's also a Kaiser plan, which is an HMO, which is also why a lot of more employees are on Uniform, because it's nationwide. It's a preferred provider. You can go to basically whoever. You just pay a little less if you go to one of their preferred providers. Whereas Kaiser Sound Choice, they control costs by limiting where you can go. You can't just go to any Kaiser clinic either. You have to go to certain ones on that plan.
But it's still divided by the Classic and Kaiser, so like would people still have access to the Uniform Medical Plan or?
Oh, yes, then they'll have access to all of the plans.
Right, we're just setting the one that the county will pay 100% of. And then that sets the limit on how much the county contributes for all the rest of them, and the employee pays the difference.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome. Yeah, no choices are being taken from the employee.
Okay, that's kind of what I was confused on. Thank you.
Robin can explain in 2 minutes what I had like 3 slides. Thank you. So, our recommendations, as we've already kind of discussed, is to adopt Uniform Medical Plan Plus to keep the status quo for next year. It's the least amount of impact to the majority of employees. It has a relatively small impact to budget. The county continues to offer a more affordable benefits package, especially than the state, which results in better recruitment and retention. And you can see that on the next slide, where we compare if we choose Uniform Medical Plan Plus as our highest standard plan. You can see the difference between what the county pays versus what state employees pay. The county comes out ahead in every single tier next year if we go this route.
It's been that way since I joined the county.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there were a couple years, there's like 1 or 2 tiers here or there that they beat us, but that was it. And we did just I don't have a slide for this. We did just receive our dental and vision renewal information late yesterday afternoon. So just for your information, vision costs don't change, which is great. Our dental plans did increase by 3% each, which is also not huge. So for employee-only dental coverage, the county is gonna pay $2 more a month for coverage. If someone has their full family on, it's $5 more a month. So it's not a huge impact, which is great.
And then was that included in the 5% assumption of the increasing cost of
It was
benefits?
not. The way that dental, vision, life, and EAP has been budgeted has been the same amount every year since I've been here.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I'm going with Tara.
Makes perfect sense.
Great.
When is open enrollment?
When it's open, the month of November. So, and we are already planning, because Kaiser had such a huge jump, we are planning on reaching out to anybody that has Kaiser and making sure that they're actually reading our open enrollment information and looking at the rates, so.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you. I'll be bringing a resolution before the board here shortly to make it official. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on with the Behavioral Health Administration, BHA LRA request.
So you have a letter in your packet, or rather an email. This is an email that Commissioner Menzer received from ESHS, where they are asking Thurston County to participate in a work session where the Washington State budget included a proviso to form a group that would explore changes in the law regarding community custody programs. And
What was that?
the
Community.
basically community custody, and you will recognize it better if I say it was the Tenino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alternative, Supreme Living.
Okay.
Right. So DSHS is asking Thurston County to participate in this work session. They're looking for engagement from counties and local jurisdictions, and the recommendation is that, this recommendation coming from me, is that one commissioner and Leah participate in this work session.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I nominate the chair.
I'll second that.
They
We're
said they're only gonna convene one time in September.
It seems,
It's like, I was like, where are we in, almost towards the end of September?
I imagine it'll be September at this point in time, that it,
I know, but
We got this, what, September
in
6th?
August,
August
Oh,
15th.
so
Are
we
we
don't,
sure the meeting hasn't occurred already?
we're not sure. We're
Okay.
gonna follow up, but
I was gone and then I came and I just assumed we all got it. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that
Yeah.
only I got it. And I wanted you guys to see it, obviously, so.
I did email Aaron to get a little bit of a clarification as to the flavor of LRA, whether it's talking about this here, secured community treatment facilities versus the more of the supreme living variety, which there is a difference in.
Did they get back to you yet?
Not yet.
so if the meeting has not yet occurred, we'll get back to Aaron and
And
tell
I'll
her
back you up
who our
if
representatives.
if need be, but I'm not very diplomatic.
I was like.
You're the
that's-
diplomat with this group. I mean, you know, thank
Okay.
you. You're the best person to represent the board as,
No, I think so.
as a whole.
Okay, all right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Leah, we're gonna have a great time.
Okay, well, I know Taylor probably won't be too happy with me, but. Okay, that was quick. Okay, meeting with DNR. So let me bring out my notes for this. So we have a meeting with DNR this Monday.
Yes.
Commissioner Menser, I know you've had meetings, I've had meetings.
I just thought
Commissioner,
we,
so I'll let you take the lead on this.
well, I just wanted to go over kind of what we're, you know, what our, if you go back to their letter from the Commissioner of Public Lands saying they'd like to engage with communities on, you know, cooperative management, big picture, which was great. But then it specifically says, we think the best way to go about that conversation is to review the tools that, you know, have been, new tools that have been created. So I understand that and I accept that, but I don't want the second piece to swallow the first piece, because it's only an hour and they could spend a full hour like going through these tools. And that's good, we need to do that, but I don't want to lose the bigger thread of, we ultimately, like, even if we got everything we could get out of these tools, it's not going to meet the complete request that the board has made not to cut the more complex, mature piece of Capital State Forest, which is around less than 3,000 acres basically that we're asking about. But, you know, this one tool that's new is 2,000 acres total for the whole state. So anyway, just in terms of making sure that I don't speak out of turn, I mean, I'm happy to speak. If the board's not in agreement, we should just kind of know where we all are at so that I can speak as an individual, not as for the board. If we're all in agreement, then we can kind of speak with one voice. But basically my points I want to make on this meeting are, number one, our goal is to protect all complex, mature pieces of forest in Capital State Forest. 3,000, probably at this point a little less than 3,000 acres. The tools that have been created are a great first step, but they won't get us there. So we do need a broader conversation that goes beyond just what acres could be swapped under the new swap program. Number two, I circulated a report that the forestry advocates have been ground truthing and going through all the cuts and all the pieces of the forest to prioritize. If we were to be asked to submit 200, 500, 1,000, 1,500 acres, what would our priority list be? And I've got a list of those cuts. Unfortunately, that list coincides very closely with the list of cuts they have scheduled to make in the next couple of years. So a corollary to that is, as we discuss what acres we might be prioritizing, are they willing to pause their cutting schedule so that these things don't get cut before we even get to engage them in this program? And then a kind of final point is that there's now the carbon program and the trust land transfer got a little extra funding, and there's this new Climate Commitment Act, I call it the SWAP program. All these tools should be working independently and not overlapped, meaning they shouldn't get to double dip and double count the acres. You know, these all need to be separate tools that are considered separately and not double counted. So those are kind of my things that I want to talk to them about. I definitely want to get into the specifics of, if, like, let's say we were all agreed on our best 1,000, our quote unquote best 1,000 acres. What happens now? Can we give you a list and then you'll just, you know, how is this going to work mechanically in terms of them acquiring other lands and then prioritizing among the different counties? I mean, there's definitely a nuts and bolts discussion to have about that program, because that's the really big new piece that came out of the legislative section, was funding from the Climate Commitment Act to fund up to 2,000 acres of protection of mature complex forests in counties that have expressed a desire to do that, and we have, and so have 3 or 4, I think 4 other counties. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts and see if you guys had any contrary or complementary thoughts that we should address in this meeting.
What is the plan if they go ahead and keep logging and take those parcels you're concerned about while this is developing? I mean, is there any recourse there at all, or is it just a good case of bad faith or something? I mean, is there anything there that allows, do you have a hammer anywhere?
I mean, the only true hammer I see we have is for cuts that are on county transfer lands, we have a reconveyance option like we're kind of doing with Summit Lake. And that's within our purview, but that's not a, you know, as we've discussed many times, that's not a technique we want to use if we're not prepared to take over responsibility for those lands. I mean, over time, I could imagine many things, building a relationship with the Squaxin Island tribe or coming up. I mean, there's things that could be done, but they would be long time consuming processes and these cuts are scheduled. So, I mean, DNR has shown I think they've shown some good faith in a couple of instances where they did pause a sale in order to allow, I think in Jefferson County, I want to say, they were working on maybe doing their own reconveyance and carbon project idea. They wanted to brainstorm that and DNR paused the sale to allow them to explore that. So I mean, I don't think they're gonna race to just cut it all down before we can, because that's the whole, I mean, because ultimately, it's not clear to me, this is a good conversation point for them. It's like, it's not clear to me who's in the decision-making chair about, you know, let's say Whatcom wants these 1,000 acres and Thurston wants these 1,000 acres and Snohomish wants these 1,000 acres, and who's actually gonna parse out who gets the 2,000 acres to swap and which acres they're gonna be within, you know, like Capital State Forest, as we know from our field visit, has some complexities to it where it's not just about what are the best pieces of forest. There's, you know, there's which ones are subject to this trust repayment obligation. And I mean, there's endless complexities to this that I'm not sure how it will get all resolved, but I guess I just, you know, based on the last time we had a 1 hour meeting with DNR a couple years ago, they just came and gave us this high level like overview slide point and took up the whole hour. And I mean, it was like information I already knew, and it just seemed like a waste of time. And I want this, the commissioner's letter promised a meaningful dialogue about co-management strategies, and I want to have that, or at least start that conversation and sketch it out. What are the possibilities for?
Okay, no, I'm good.
Okay with that? Okay.
There was a presentation to the DNR board on this meeting, and
Okay.
there was a lot of
To the BNR.
yeah, and there was a lot of kind of repeating information about what we've discussed before. And so I will be making the point clear, since time is so limited, that we don't need to rehash past information that we've discussed, right? I think,
Yeah, remind them we've had two.
yeah,
We had a full one in the old boardroom, and then we had our field visit where we covered a lot of basics.
so we need to like focus
We don't need
on,
another dog and pony show
Yeah.
about the, you know.
and that's, you know, that's something that I think it would just be, from that presentation, there was a lot of rehashing from previous items we've discussed and going into the weeds again into those items, and it just, I don't think none of us, from what I'm hearing, wants that. So that was my point, and making sure that I could clarify with them that we don't want to be going back into those items. We want to go ahead and see how we can really partner together and move this forward. And, you know, letting them know that, you know, our position has not changed since we first started this conversation in regards to Legacy Forest. And, you know, are you planning to make the request to like either set an agreement or, you know, just a request that all sales be paused until like we've reached a resolution to this? Is that going to be part of your request, or
I
what
want to
is-
know, yeah, I mean, I would basically say, I got a list of areas that are the highest priority for Thurston County. I'm ready to ship that over to you tomorrow or whatever. And then we, would, you know, to the extent that overlaps with scheduled cuts, we would want to make sure that those didn't go forward until we'd had a chance to explore the appropriateness of the cuts we're proposing to be included. And we'll see what they say. I don't, you know, they may just say, yeah, that makes sense. Or they may say, well, that, you know, case by case basis, we make no promises. Or they may say, nope, we're gonna follow this schedule. And I don't know exactly what they'll say. I don't think they're gonna say that third thing, but I don't know to what extent they'll agree or give us suggestions as to how to best handle that.
And so I'm wondering, right, if there also can be a conversation about this upcoming legislation process and asking for or requesting an increase from that 2,000. So not sure if we can also have that conversation on like, you know, we want this. I'm sure the other counties want this too that have signed up and said we want to be a part of this. How can we make an increase in that? So
I'm sure they'll say that's to talk up with your legislators. And if they tell us to do that, we'll respond accordingly. But to the extent that, you know, it's clear to them that we're gonna advocate for that, it's another argument for, let's not go, I mean, you know, there's a lot of nuances as to why they've got the scheduled cuts the way they've got them, and it ties into the HCP and all this other stuff. But it definitely looks like, you know, there's in recent couple of years and the next couple of years, there's a real targeting of our more mature, complex pieces of our capital city forest. You know, like I say, they've got reasons for that are probably not nefarious, but it feels, you know, a little bit daunting to us to think that while the legislature is just now recognizing the value of complex mature forest, it's now recognized and enshrined in state law, just as we're getting the resources under the Climate Commitment Act that could really make a game-changing difference to achieving this goal, we've got this aggressive schedule of cuts. So that's where, you know, there has to be a little bit of recognition and discussion.
So I know that by the end of September, they're choosing, we have to nominate an area to be chosen for that specific legislation of 5 or 6 projects that they're choosing. And so at that point, while we're meeting here with DNR, are we gonna, you know, is that why you're gonna give them the list of these are the
Yeah, I don't-
projects or?
I don't know what form they want that in, but that's what I need to know, and we'll produce that for them.
Okay, yeah, so that way, since they're gonna be here, we can let them know, like, this is our nomination
Right.
to, you know, to be added into one of those 5 or 6 projects that you're considering. So not sure. Okay.
I mean, this is why, this is just kind of a side point, but I'd asked Ramiro if Rebecca could be kind of, I mean, the legacy forest issue was not at the beginning, like squarely a climate issue only. It had a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gravitated a little bit toward that. And in terms of like touch points with DNR, I mean, this is where it's like, somebody needs to be point to where, like right now, like what your question was, by what mechanism are we to nominate projects, and what do they need? Do they need mapping? Do they need just a description? Do they need, you know, GPS coordinates? I don't know, but somebody needs to be that liaison with DNR.
Rebecca makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that she could just kind of be that. We have questions, she checks with, she's got a contact at DNR and she gets the information and she gets us moving. Cause I get bits and pieces from different quarters but I'm, you know, it's not appropriate for one commissioner because we're a board, you know?
Yeah.
I can't be off doing this and that. It's gotta be the county manager or one of our designated staff.
So I'll talk to Rebecca and see if Romero checked in with her, and we'll make sure she'll be at Monday's meeting and get her involved in this.
Okay. Any other areas that we want to cover in that meeting? depending if they take us down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, 12:18, do commissioners have commissioner items that they would like to discuss at this time?
Yeah, who tried to figure this out? Who was able to tell we were gonna be done at 12:15 is what I'm curious about. That was pretty good planning. Just don't know. I don't know how that happened.
Not me.
I have a commissioner item. So, there's actually two pieces. In speaking with Chehalis Tribal Council members yesterday, they asked about our road agreement, and they said that at the meeting, last meeting we had, I couldn't remember whose court the ball was in, but they seem to think it's in our court, and they seem to think that we told them within a couple weeks they'd have the answer back. I thought we'd sort of ironed those wrinkles out of that agreement on the road transfer, but they're wanting to know where things stand.
I'll double check with Jennifer. I think the last was that the final version was with the DPA, so we'll make sure.
If you could follow up on that, I appreciate it. And the second thing was, if you remember from that meeting, we discussed the private property near Moon Road where there's been homeless encampments. And they said that's growing and.
Again, it's going?
It's growing and causing issues, and they were, and I said, well, remind me what the land status is, and they said, oh, it's privately owned, but it's in bankruptcy, so that basically folks are taking advantage of the fact that there really isn't an owner, and they remembered that Commissioner Edwards had said something about, we could call the bank, or, we were throwing around ideas for how to get some attention to that, because the actual property owner is like MIA, and so there's really nobody to contact to deal with it. So they wanted to know they want us to know about that, and thought if there's anything we could do along the lines of how we were brainstorming, they would appreciate it.
And maybe just pass the word to the sheriff that there's something going on. I don't know how much he's involved in that, but usually there's illicit activity of some type going on. But I do think that banks are very receptive when you tell them they're on notice about being exposed to liability or something like that, through a letter communication. That way it gets put on record. Calling them on the phone doesn't work. You need to send them a letter. This is going on property that you are holding, or whatever it is. They usually get something done, usually, not always.
It might be interesting if they got a letter signed by the board as well as the tribal chairman of Chehalis Tribe, a joint letter. And that might catch their attention. You won't see that every day.
So is it a code, I understand it's a homeless camp, but could that be under the code compliance umbrella if it's on private property?
I think it's an active compliance case, but I put down a note to follow up with compliance.
Okay.
I'm also thinking has Keely know about this encampment and Moon Road and.
So we'll work this and see where it's at and
So-
what the next steps ought to be.
Yeah, because I'm in support of sending a joint letter from the board as well as the tribal chair and to the bank, I guess, because it's the bank who's.
Yeah,
current-
also probably check with the
Whoever's
treasurer's
paying the
office
taxes.
to see who's on point and whether or not they're delinquent. or-
Yeah. So you and I can coordinate next steps on this.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if there's a private property owner that's engaged with their property, it's kind of like it's their call, right? But this is falling through the cracks because it's in this state of bankruptcy and the bank doesn't pay that kind of attention. They're not an engaged
Right.
property owner a lot of times, so.
Right.
And it's
So
right, yeah.
the first step is to see where it's at with code compliance, and what's already been done. And then we can figure out what's next.
All right, thank you. Those are my issues.
Okay. Anything else? 12:23, we are adjourned.